Expert speaker today, Sheila Dunn. Sheila is currently Head of Quality and International Development at the Scottish Accreditation and Qualifications Framework Partnership, which she joined in May 2012. She has responsibilities for activities relating to the quality and integrity of the framework, including direct support and capacity building for new and existing credit rating bodies, as well as for a range of activities relating to the framework and its relationship to other frameworks in the UK, Europe and beyond. She is responsible for the management of the quality assurance model for credit rating bodies and the development of the RPEL toolkit and resources, the database and a range of capacity building workshops. She has worked in education in Scotland for over 25 years, starting her career as a research fellow working in higher education, researching quality systems in education. She moved to take up a quality manager at a vocational college, responsible for setting up and monitoring quality systems, and then as a development officer with the Quality Assurance Agency Scotland, managing and facilitating reviews of learning and teaching in higher education institutions across Scotland. Prior to joining the partnership, Sheila was Head of Learning Enhancement at Kilmarnock College in Scotland, a vocational education college. She was responsible for the strategic leadership of a range of services, including quality enhancement, learning resources, learning manager services and marketing, ensuring that the college met the needs of all learners during their learning journey. She has managed the college's credit rating of non-formal learning for inclusion within the Scottish framework. Sheila graduated with the BA Honours in Business Studies and holds a postgraduate certificate in Professional Studies in Education, and we welcome you here this morning.
I'm not quite sure I can live up to that. Build up now. Yeah, Noah has said it all. So currently I work at the SCQF Partnership, and we're the organisation that manages the Scottish Credit and Qualification Framework in Scotland, which is the National Qualification Framework. I suppose what I want to do today is talk a little bit, I suppose maybe at a sort of different level than we've been talking at this morning. So to talk a little bit about our framework to start with, because it's a little bit different to other frameworks, and that might help you understand how RPL works in Scotland. Talk a little bit about where RPL sits, how it relates to government policy, how we relate to government, and to talk through some of the resources that we make available for practitioners and learners in Scotland. Feel free to stop me if you've got questions, I don't mind, as we go along, or save them all up for the end. It's entirely up to you. And hopefully we'll finish with some benefits and challenges and things that we still face in Scotland. So, just to move on, to explain a little bit about the SCQF to begin with. So this is our framework. So a bit of a different diagram to the Irish diagram. You've got the nice band, you've got a square. And the first thing you'll see is that we have 12 levels and you have 10. Obviously some of you will know that the European Qualification Framework has 8. So we win. Sticking to our 12 at the moment, it causes some confusion. So bear with me if I mention levels that don't mean much to you. I do have a handy writing tool, and I don't know if some of you will have seen this. Yeah. And this is the one that we work with our counterparts across the UK, all the framework owners, and QQI here in Ireland. So your framework sits here. We're very predictable. We've got the blue column, you've got the green column. Wales are in red, and England have two frameworks there as well, so we're quite predictable. But this shows how they relate to each other and the levels. I've got a few of them with me, but you can get them from our website as well, so I'm going to keep that so that I can relate to the two different levels. But what our framework diagram shows, it's very much a lifelong learning framework, and it covers all sectors in Scotland. So in this column here are all our school qualifications in the first column, from National 1s to National 5s, and Highers, which are our traditional university entrance exams. So we don't have a school leaving certificate. School pupils will do a range of subjects at the different levels. And normally, once they've done hires, move to university, but they might stay on and do advanced hires. We used to have a lot of school qualifications with lots of different names and numbers, and quite recently that was all reviewed. And they're called National 1 to National 5, reflecting the levels 1 to 5 in the framework to try and make that simpler for people to understand. The next column, we have our higher national certificates, higher national diplomas, vocational qualifications, normally delivered in our further education colleges, and other qualifications like professional development awards, which tend to be sort of more specialised awards that you might undertake while you're at work. All of these are awarded by our national awarding organisation called Scottish Qualification Authority, that some of you may have heard of. So there is only one provider of our school qualifications. In the blue column are all of our qualifications for our higher education sector, and in the far column are what we now like to call our apprenticeship family. Different to what's provided in the rest of the UK, we have our own set of apprenticeships, and those go from, as you can see, the level 5 modern apprenticeship right up to our newly launched graduate apprenticeships, where you can be in work and get paid, but also be completing your degree at the same time, and those go up to level 11. So we're all on our framework. As I said, it's lifelong learning, so this is what we would call our mainstream qualifications. We have in total on our framework 11,500. Well, this is where I get into terrible trouble, qualifications. In Scotland, we don't have all the definitions that some other countries have, so we don't really define qualifications, so you'll find that I talk about qualifications, learning programmes, courses interchangeably, which causes some of my colleagues in other countries some difficulty to understand. We have 11,500. We have all of these in mainstream, so it includes all the sort of university degrees and all their variations, but it also includes, in addition to this, probably now approaching about 1,000 other types of programmes. Anything can go on our programme as long as it meets our 4 criteria. So as long as it's at least 10 notional hours in length, so we accept little tiny pieces of learning. It's written in learning outcomes, it's quality assured, it's formally assessed and quality assured. And that's our 4 basic criteria. So we don't ask for anything to look in a particular way, but to be developed in a particular way. Each sector will have its own requirements. So just to say, actually, before I move on, just say the one level, just to illustrate how our framework works, is level 7 for us. So this is where probably sit round about your level 5, 6. So level 7, we can have school pupils at school doing advanced higher. We can have someone at a college doing a higher national certificate. We can have someone at first year university undertaking their first year or a certificate in higher education, and we could have somebody out in the workplace doing a modern apprenticeship. They're all at level 7, so they all meet the descriptor we have for that level, but they may look very different in size and what their purpose is, but they do all sit at the same level, and that's the one that goes right across all the sectors. So the organisation I work for, our framework was launched in 2001, so it's been around quite a while. And originally it was managed by a steering group of key organisations and agencies in Scotland. But it was decided after a few years that progress embedding the framework into Scottish education hadn't gone as quickly as the government would have liked. So the SCQF partnership was established in 2006 with the responsibility for promoting the SCQF. We're a company limited by guarantee, and we're a registered charity, so we are not a government agency or a government body, so I'm not a civil servant. And we're very much deliberately set up like that because in Scotland as a charity, government can't direct what we do. So if the political party changes in government, they can't necessarily just, the minister can't come along and decide he'll he or she will change the framework. So very much set up as an independent organisation to give advice and to promote the framework. And we're made up of, our board is made up of our key partners. So we have Quality Assurance Agency in Scotland, which is the quality body for higher education. College Development Network, a training body for the further education sector. Scottish Qualifications Authority, as I said, our national awarding body. University Scotland's representative body of the higher education institutions. And we always have a director on our board representing employers. So we have somebody from the Scottish Training Federation at the moment. We have an independent chair at the moment, that's Rob Wallen, who was a principal of a further education college. And the board oversees what we do. And these are our aims. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I've highlighted a couple of the bits just to show where, I suppose, RPL comes into our aims about our framework. So our framework aims very much concentrates on about helping people to access the appropriate learning and training and to understand qualifications. So, and it's for people of all ages and circumstances. And it's probably the aim at the bottom there of the slide that I want to highlight, where it's providing a framework that can support the aims of fair work and social justice, by ensuring it provides tools and resources which can recognise prior learning, support progression and improve social inclusion. So it's in our aims of our framework about that recognition of prior learning. So it's something that we work quite hard to promote and to provide lots of tools and resources to enable that to happen. So it's really built into our national framework. Some of this I've covered. 11,500 learning programmes or qualifications, as I said, owned by around about 280 different organisations have qualifications on the framework. Non-formal learning programmes, probably, that says 800, probably more approaching 1,000 now, right from levels 2 to 11 in our framework, so the span right across the framework, and they go from very small pieces of learning, so 10 hours, to over 1,000 learning hours. And programme owners that are involved in our framework will include large public sectors, so our fire service, our social care, police, health service, individual employers have programmes up there, trade associations and trade unions, professional bodies, adult education organisations, youth organisations and community organisations. So we do cover the full spectrum. And I just thought I'd show, well, maybe it's too small for you to see some of the things. This is sort of a framework diagram, but on here are examples of some of the non-formal learning that we have at the different levels. Listening to the sort of talk this morning, I thought I'd sort of point out we have Sports Leaders UK, which is sports leadership qualifications people might have done in school. However, we've also got NHS Education, Caring for Smiles, which is sort of training that someone might do when they're working with the NHS. And we also have one here which is owners called Lanarkshire Recovery Consortium, and it's an advocacy practice. So for people that are involved in advocacy and they get a qualification that's on the framework. And again, there's our Scottish Police College right up near the top of the framework with their event command training. So you'll see it's got a lot of different things. If you've worked as a walking tour guide for a company called Mercat Tours Limited in Scotland, you might get the qualification that sits on our framework. So we do really cover a broad spectrum. And just to explain very quickly how that all gets on there, unlike a lot of other frameworks in a lot of other countries, we manage the framework, we quality assure it, but we don't make decisions about levels and credits and where things sit on our framework. We have a devolved system, so we use organisations that we call credit rating bodies who are given the authority to allocate levels and credits to their qualifications and to qualifications belonging to other organisations, and we oversee that process. And we have a number of documents. We have a quality assurance model, a handbook, and our level descriptors that help those organisations to carry out that process. And I'll come back to the handbook just in a minute or two. So the credit rating bodies, organisations that have been given this authority, are all of our higher education institutions, all of our further education colleges, SQA in all of its formats, and then a number of other organisations that apply to us to get that authority, and they go through quite a rigorous quality assured process to do that. It takes them around 9 months to a year to go through that full process, and we visit them to get that authority to allocate levels and credits to the qualifications. So for example, our fire and rescue service have gone through that process, so they can now put all their in-house training. And somebody mentioned a bit this morning about doing a lot of training with an employer and perhaps not being able to demonstrate what that means. And the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service and our Scottish Police Service have now got their training on the national framework, and they can do that themselves. They all use the same process, so it doesn't matter if you're Glasgow University, or you are City and Guilds, or you're the Scottish Prison Service College. They work with the same set of descriptors, the same process, same guidelines to get the qualifications onto the framework. So a bit of a different approach where we sit over the top and no one is applying to us to training us their qualifications. So where does RPL sit in Scotland? And I thought I'd start with our definition that we promote, so that the recognition of prior learning is the process for recognising learning that has its source in experience and or previous formal, non-formal and informal learning contexts. So as you can see, experience is the first one that we mention in that definition. So, as I said, we're not a government agency, so we rely on the support from the Scottish Government to help us promote RPL and the framework. And I just thought I'd show you this quote quickly from John Swinney, who's our Deputy First Minister and the Cabinet Secretary for Education Skills, who spoke at our conference last year. And we do get a lot of support from the Scottish Government about the use of the framework. And this was his quote about the framework being an important tool that we value as it allows new and different types of learning to continue to be assessed as equivalence in giving learners a roadmap. And that's what the government is very keen to provide. So we have a number of current government policies that we feed into, and I'm just give you a brief description, but I'm not going too much to them. But we have something called Developing the Young Workforce, which was published in 2014, and it focuses on improving levels of youth employment through examining how Scotland provides, promotes and values a range of learning to a wide range of posts, and it's looking at what relevant experience for young people. Closing the Gap 2014 as well is about closing that gap associated with poverty in Scotland. And then we had the Commission on Widening Access in 2016, and they published what they called was a blueprint for fairness, and it had a range of recommendations, identifying, I think there was about 34 recommendations from the Commissioner, identifying areas where there needs to be closer working across the sectors in Scotland to promote that fairness of access. And we are all the organisations across Scotland, we are all working on those recommendations. Excellence and Equity in Education in 2016 was a vision, produced a vision for Scotland that by 2025 people in Scotland would have world-leading working life, where fair work drives success, well-being and prosperity. And then the learner journey review 15 to 24, and it was interesting to hear you describe things as a journey, because the learner journey is a big thing in Scotland at the moment. We've had this review, so we all talk about the learner journey. And this was about ensuring that education provision for young people is as effective and efficient as it can be, and provides more stepping stones. And I know a lot of you are working with adults, but some of the things that have been brought up in 15 to 24 Learner Journey Review apply to adults as well, and a lot of the things that are going to come out of that are going to help adults access education as well. So it was about, this is the recommendation we're kind of working on, and it's about that developing and better aligning schools, third sector, independent training providers, colleges, universities with business to provide learners with meaningful choices, enabling progression and promoting SCQF. So this is something that we are working towards, and the SCQF is a big part of that, and helping especially all those transitions where someone might not necessarily be going through the traditional expected route of school, college, university, or school to university. So it's looking at all of that, how can you move between college, university, work, school, etc. So how do we do all this? I've just mentioned the handbook in relation to RPL. So this is the handbook that all our credit rating bodies have to work with, and we have 25 cross-cutting principles, and the handbook's divided into 5 sections, and as you'll see we have a whole section for RPL. And this we expect all of our credit rating bodies, and when we add up all the universities, colleges, it's about 55 organisations that have the authority to credit rate, place things on the qualification framework, and they have to go through the handbook, and we have this whole section on RPL. This is what they have to do. So it covers, we have all these principles, and yet they don't run, the numbers don't run one after the other, because we have 25 principles, then we put them in all the different sections. So we've got about the bodies ensuring that the process of credit rating, when they're looking at the qualifications that they're going to put on the framework, that they have RPL policies and procedures in place, and that it takes cognizance of the framework in that process, that they're promoting RPL, that the RPL is given for learning. There's a lot of talk this morning about it being learning, not just the experience. So we do a lot of work on stressing that where they're awarding SCQF credit points, that those are seen as the same value as when someone does that through the formal learning. So there's no difference made to the certificate someone gets at the end. That the award of credit points must have some kind of formal assessment or acceptance of the evidence, and it must be a quality assured process. What about it being built into the normal quality assurance, and about monitoring and reviewing the operation of RPL procedures. So when we are approving a new credit rating body, we're looking that they're meeting all of this, and they have the necessary processes in place for RPL for learners.
Does that mean that all courses then can be accessed by using RPL?
In theory, yes. In practice, obviously some aspects may not be available by RPL, so there will always be courses that will have aspects, and a lot of them tend to maybe be in healthcare or health and safety type aspects, where even sometimes you have to renew every 2 or 3 years, or your certificate, where you have to be able to demonstrate that you might have to have the skills. So there will always be things that may not be available through RPL. But what we are asking for is that organisations, when they're developing qualifications, that they should be considering the place of RPL for the learners that would be on those programmes. And we talk a lot, and I haven't really gone into it in this presentation, but we talk a lot about, when we do training sessions a bit like this, about general and specific credit. So someone may have done a qualification that may have given them 480 SCQF credit points, and they might be wanting to access our honours degree, which is 480 credit points. But what we say is, you may have 480 points from all the different things you've done, but that's general credit. when you're applying that to where you want to go in that specific qualification, not all of those 480 points might be relevant. So yes, you've got the same number of points that might be have been deemed to be at the same level as the honours degree that you want to access, but you're not necessarily going to just be given that honours degree because the subject match might not be exact. There might be elements that you need to redo, so you may only get 200 or 300 credits. Does that make sense? So we spend a lot of time, especially explaining to learners that yes, they might have all of these things. The relevant that I use is about a supermarket loyalty card where you get all your points. It's not like that and then you cash it in at the end necessarily and get that full value. Sometimes you don't get the full value because it always depends on what you want to apply the RPL for. So we always say at the end of the day, it's the decision of the receiving institution or organisation how many credit points to give you for the learning that you've already undertaken. So you might go with a portfolio thinking you've got X number of credits, or equivalent to X number of credits at a certain level, but that institution will have the final say in what you do.
And are those institutions required to have, formal documentation saying that they obviously have entry requirements for your school leavers or your FET learners? Are they required to state what they will and won't look for in RPL, or is that a case-by-case basis?
It's really a case-by-case basis. Most universities will all have a policy. Something that I didn't say at the beginning of this is that we are slightly different to many countries in that we have no legislation behind our framework. It's a completely voluntary framework. So we have to work with all of the organisations to get them to participate. So no one is required to place their qualifications onto the national framework. Obviously the sectors have bought into that and there are agreements in place. But as a result, we as an organisation can't require anyone to do anything. And equally like that with RPL, there's no legislation that says they must take someone, and there are lots of policies, lots of initiatives in place, and sometimes funding may be attached to certain policies, but there's actually no formal legislation behind our framework. So that's quite different to a lot of other countries. So, does that all make sense? I know it's quite a different system, in that it's not perhaps as natural, in terms of the qualifications. They don't all come into a central point, and we don't approve all the qualifications and attach the levels and credits. So that's spread out, and the organisations do that themselves, and then we quality assure and monitor them and what they're doing. So what I thought I'd show you was some of the actual activities and resources now that we've developed. And I didn't, I'll try the internet perhaps, but I didn't think I would risk it for this. We've just relaunched our online RPL resource, and it's a resource for information and guidance for both learners and for facilitators or mentors. And it's to highlight the different ways in which RPL can be used, try to clarify some of the jargon that we use and all of the different abbreviations. And it's about providing, signposting learners and facilitators to where they might get other information. So we're still very much building those links even though we've put this up. And I'm hoping you can see this. So you can go onto our website at scqf.org.uk and you can access the RPL toolkit. In order to get people to use it, we don't ask for your email, we don't ask you to set up an account. You can go in and use it to your heart's content. You don't need to give us any of your details, we don't record anything. And what you can do, you will be asked, you're faced with these different scenarios, so ask what learning are you seeking recognition for? So what type of learning do you already have? So do you have learning gained through personal experience, day-to-day life, volunteering, professional context, etc. But you don't have a certificate or anything to show. Scenario 2, training and learning that signifies achievement, not simply a certificate of attendance. And it's been certificated perhaps by an awarding body, but it's not necessarily on the SCQF. So you might be coming with something from another country or an organisation that hasn't put its qualifications on the framework. And then scenario 3 is training and learning that's been achieved and has been certificated and is on the SCQF. We've tried to steer away as much as we can from formal learning, informal learning, RPL, etc. You know, we kind of tried to simplify the language. And then we're asking people to identify, well, what do you want to do with that? What's the recognition you're seeking? So are you simply looking for recognition to improve your confidence, develop a CV, identify your next steps in your career, or where you might want to apply for in terms of your learning? That's a more reflective process. Outcome 2, providing recognition of learning to allow entry or advanced entry into an existing programme which isn't on the SCQF. Or it could be used for something that's a professional competence or standards for practice, a practice to a certificate for practice. And outcome 3, where you're looking for recognition of learning to allow entry or exemption from particular parts or stages of an SCQF credit rated programme, so more credit transfer. So what you do is you pick, so I've picked that I've got learning gained through personal experience and day-to-day life, but I'm wanting to get recognition to allow me to enter onto a programme of learning. It's not necessarily on the framework. And when I click those and do get results, what you get is some information, and what we're trying to say to people is this is the process you're likely to expect, just to give them a bit of a heads up of this is the sorts of things you might be asked, the sort of things you might have to supply. So questions like, you know, what if the learning provider doesn't recognise RPL? Who might carry it out? Is it worth it? Will it cost anything? So trying to answer where you might find out that information. And explaining that you can't go along and demand RPL, it's not quite how it works in Scotland. And explaining a bit, we talked about this morning about building a portfolio, so explaining to people you might be asked to build a portfolio. Don't start to do that before you ask them if they got a format they'd like it in, you know, what were they willing to accept, and how do you get it started. And what we're trying to do is these resources and links is to build those up. So we're now having some, my development officers now contacting lots of different sector bodies and organisations to say, do you have lots of information on RPL on your websites that we can link to and direct learners to? So people like Scottish Social Services Council, who have quite a lot of information on their website, trying to create those links so that if you're working in that area, you can then follow through to where you can find information. Because sometimes for people that don't know a lot about RPL and the terminology and everything, it's quite hard sometimes to find exactly the right organisation or the right website or the right person to talk to. What we also have is a box here, so you pick the same outcomes, but you select I am supporting a learner with RPL. And again, we go through these about where are the other organisations that could help you as that facilitator, and you could get more information, or you can direct your learner to for more advice. So we provide that information as well, and again trying to build up that information. So you can go and try it for yourselves and see if you think it's helpful. We did have a paper version, which I think was one that was used for some of the information today, and we've been moved on to this online version rather than producing paper for that. So we did this originally, and a lot of the sort of templates, sort of maybe grids that you could use with a learner were in the paper pack. So we've now just started to this is our next stage is getting them standalone templates, getting them up in here on the toolkit so that if you're a facilitator, you can download those templates and you can use them as you wish. So if any of you want to, they will be up there shortly, you can go in and have a look at those templates as well. Another resource that we have developed is called My Skills, My Future. And I'm going to speak about this, and this was primarily developed for young people in Scotland, but it's got, we've realised that it's got wider uses. So it was originally developed as an RPL tool, and it was aimed at young people who had left or were due to leave school with little or no formal qualifications, and not a positive destination in terms of training and employment, etc. But it's also a resource that can be used for people facing redundancy, adult returners, or the long-term unemployed. It will probably be used equally for them. And we know a lot of the users of the pack that we have and also use them for those groups. It was originally designed and developed by one of the universities along with us back in 2013, so it's been around in different formats for quite a while, and it was tested by our Skills Development Scotland, which is our all-age career service, and an organisation, and I'm never sure if it's Celsius or Kelkis, but it's a Centre for Excellence, and it's for looked after children, and they reviewed the pack for us as well. But we've revised and refreshed it in its current format in 2017. And some of the chat was interesting this morning. This isn't available on our website, it's not available online. It was a very particular decision that we took, that the target audience we felt were unlikely to use an online resource on their own. We didn't think it was, we really felt this was an activity that had to be done with a facilitator. So it is actually, and I don't have one because Ryder's hand baggage laws didn't allow us to bring it. It is a giant ring binder physical resource with white clean pages. So you can use it with a group and individuals, you can write on it with a marker pen, then you can clean it all off and use it for your next group. But a very deliberate decision to keep it as a paper format. And it's really about helping individuals understand the skills and strengths gained through experiential learning and be able to benchmark that to the formal learning levels on the SCQF. So, it's got a range of activities to work through with an individual, and if you can see that we've got these sort of experience cards, and I think there's 34, 35 of them in the pack. This one is caring for others. Somebody did mention if you were working in a sort of community group, or there's some work experience ones if they have had some work experience as well. And what it helps them to do is tick the skills that represent the skills that they've got through that. So a learner would pick 2 or 3 of these and then work their way through. And you'll see we have sort of icons here and colours. And as the person's working through selecting what skills they think they've got through these different activities and the kinds of things, it develops into a profile sheet. So where are the kinds of skills that come out, their sort of skills personality, for want of another word, and it identifies, looking through the sort of characteristics that we would work through with the level descriptors, sort of, so knowledge and understanding, then your practical skills, your thinking skills, your comms, numeracy and IT, and then your sort of responsibility and working with others type of activities. And it brings them a profile, and the different colours are linked to the levels, so they're not asked to identify what level do they think they're at. By the time they work through this whole process, it then comes out with a level and a profile. And it really gives individuals a better understanding of their skills and the ability to be able to use the language to articulate those skills on a CV. It's about identifying, the final part is about an action plan. So identifying your future career or further training, about building self-confidence and raising aspirations. And it's been benchmarked against career standards and sometimes will actually generate the evidence of some of our national awards.